it's week 8 of the GBA, and we're playing Tom. We haven't played Tom since a long time ago in Season 3. Everyone remembers our last game against Tom. It was a great old time. So as soon as Tom was announced to be coming back in the league, at the same time as I was really hoping we get to play. We got put in different conferences, but we still get to play, so I'm pretty well excited for this. So, Tom hasn't been doing that great, unfortunately. So we've been doing like kind of okay, sorta, kind of, but anyway. Automatically, you see we have a problem here, which is that we're not playing on X, even though I could have, because that means we didn't bring the Glade. So we could have played on X, and we didn't, and I'm not okay with that, but I'll live with it. So anyway, over here, we have got coming a Sylveon, a Starmie, a Milotic, a Sawk, a Tyrantrum, and a Gligar, which that was quite, I think, yeah, see, we had an issue wherein, like, Tom didn't get his pokes from the guy he needed him to, so we had to wait a day, and I figured, well, that probably means he needed the 6th gen stuff, so he probably was bringing Sylveon and Tyrantrum, but I was pretty sure those were coming anyway, so, and I planned for all 11 anyway, so whatever. Anyway, that's also why this video is up late, and we may or may not, like, get lazy on the music a little bit, so if it doesn't transition like it normally does, please forgive me, guys. But anyway, not appearing, we have a Mega Aerodactyl, a Cobalion, I hate that dude, so I'm glad not to see him, Arcanine, Xatu, so no Magic Bounce shenanigans, Jellicent, and no, that's all pretty much. Anyway, so here is the team you see here, and as we kind of mentioned earlier, there's no Mega Glade, which means we could have played on X, but I didn't want to download the patch because my phone data is kind of almost gone, so for the month already, so it like resets at the halfway point of the month, so yeah. Anyway, we have Sableye, and for once, no confusion nonsense. Tom has no ghost resists, so yeah, it doesn't, I don't expect Sableye to be able to sweep or anything. That is the operative thing this week, is that we brought two guys. We brought two, like, setup sweepy guys. Have not done that, like, all season. I mean, bulk up Mega Glade, and I think maybe 1 week we brought Swords Dance, kind of, but other than that, we have not brought setup all year. He's got a couple of things that could pseudo haze, or, do whatever. Or taunt would be applicable as well. But I haven't brought setup all year, so, I'm hoping maybe we can get it to work this time, so. Pretty standard Sableye, just Calm Mind, Wisp, Bold, and mostly physically defensive, because I can't Wisp a Flare Blitzing Arcanine, so that's Sableye. Greninja has the speeds, and I feel like for Protean Greninja, I wouldn't like Life Orb as much as I do, but half the time with Greninja, I'm trying to get him worn down from Life Orb so I can get into Torrent range, so there's that. We actually have Surf because I didn't want Hydro Pump to freaking miss. It was literally just there for Arcanine because, we saw last week that, reasonably fast fire types can be a problem, so Greninja can kind of, say, hey, stop that. Tom has 3 waters, so we're bringing Grass Knot. U-turn's good because it can potentially get us into our win condition, which is going to be the next guy. And then there's a Sylveon, so clearly we're going to be bringing Junk Shot, or Jank Shot, as I shall now call it, because that move has 80% accuracy, and I don't expect it to hit. Clefable is our win condition this week. Now, the last time I brought a poke and said, like, going into the game, like, yeah, this is my win condition, this is how we're going to win, was Season 2 against Shady Penguin, wherein I believe we brought somebody with dual screens. I don't even remember who it was. We brought somebody with screens, and then I had Shell Smash, Cloyster, and that was going to be how we won the game. And that didn't happen, and we came very close to getting 6-0'd if Shady had played it differently. So we haven't had the best experience in the past of just saying, alright, this poke, this is our win condition, this is how we're going to win this game. But again, I haven't brought setup all year, and if Cosmic Power Fable gets up to 2 Cosmic Powers, and he has no way to, like, taunt it or get it out of there, force it out, in some way, get rid of the boosts, then I think we just win unless he crits. Which, you know, for those of you who haven't been following the Sharpedos for very long, you may not remember their moniker of the San Jose Critpedos. So I was kind of interested in giving Tom a chance to do that as well. It's a pretty standard Cosmic Power Fable set. Stored power, you know, eventually gets up to like 200-something stupid base power. Charge Beam ramps up the special attack so it actually kills stuff, and then Soft Boil Magic Guard. Unaware is, you know, a possible thing for that if you're worried about stuff boosting up on you quicker, but, you know, I wanted to be able to ignore burns and toxic and all that other nonsense. So, Magic Guard it is, plus that way we have more Soft Boils instead of having to use Moonlight. So that's Fable. If Fable gets in and isn't, like, threatened by something and can set up a Cosmic Power, then yeah, we set up another Cosmic Power and we probably win. We actually have Citrus Berry because the idea is that with that little surge of health as opposed to lefties, that might make for the setup a little bit easier. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I was actually considering to go, like, all in on this strat and just like lead off Claydol, dual screens explode, maybe just one screen explode, or maybe just one screen die. But, you know, do something with Claydol and then get Fable in and then just win. Click the win button 4-5-0. But I was like, it's not a non-zero chance that he brings stuff that can beat out the set, so I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. The problem, of course, with this strategy is that this Clefable offers very much nothing in the way of instant, like, pressure or offense or speed control or any of that stuff. So if the Fable doesn't work, then we're going to have a bad time because we are effectively going to be down a poke. But that leads us into Empoleon, so, you know, we kind of have to end up bringing rocks every week. Even though, like, in theory with Fable we shouldn't need it this week if we can just, you know, win with Fable, but we ended up having Shuka Berry again. I was bouncing between Lefty, Shuka, and Chopal Berry, and I decided, I think I've got enough stuff to deal with the fighting stuff. So, and I can't, like, hit stuff back, that's the fighting type stuff back, super effective stab, like I can Gligar with Scald, Tyrantrum, EQ with Flash Cannon, etc. So, decided to go with that. Mostly physically defensive, a little bit of special defense. You know, Empoleon's got some innate special bulk. And then just dual stab, rocks, and 3 bulky waters, or 3 waters in general, so grass not cool. Magazone is the same one as last week, I just maxed out the speed because you need max speed on a base 60 to outspeed 115. It ties with Whimsicott, who is one above Starmie, so pretty much the same exact set, HP Ice. For Gligar, though, I don't know that I ever actually want to click it, but whatever. If Starmie gets to be a threat, it outspeeds everything except for the Mega Arrow, so cool. And then Weezing is almost kind of filler, but really he's like my fighting type switch in. Decided to go with that cheeky Pain Split optimized, not really optimized, but it's funny. You know, low HP so that Pain Split does more than just, you know, invest in both defenses. So, you know, it makes him a little bit frailer overall, but it makes Pain Split work better, so whatever. Stab for Sylveon. I really thought about HP Ice for Gligar, but I decided Gligar probably can't do too much to Weezing, so I'll just Wisp it and then bludgeon it a bit until it goes away. So, yeah, Sludge Bomb and T-Bolt, because again, multiple bulky waters. And the bottom line there, you can see we got 12 speed EVs on all of the things, not actually all the things, but all the base 60s who aren't Scarfed. Which is, I guess, the bottom, no, it's, yeah, Fable, Empoleon, and Weezing all have 12 speed, and that's to maybe get the drop on a Sylveon that's not running speed, or just did the token, you know, 4 speed to do whatever, so minor investment that could pay dividends. And I thought about boosting Sableye to there as well, but that was going to be like almost 100 EVs, so not going to do that. So anyway, let us see how the game goes, see if Fable can actually do what I want it to do, or maybe not. We'll see. Holy carp, that intro went on way too long. Anyway, we're going to lead out with Greninja because, you know, U-turn and good stuff. So, yeah, so he's leading out with Sylveon, and like, he's probably going to switch. But if he stayed in, then I could Gun Shot, but then Greninja's probably dead to a Hyper Voice, so I think in the end I'm just going to U-turn here. I'm not quite sure what he wants to do, but you know, if he's physically defensive, then he'll live a gunk shot. I'm certainly not choice banded or anything like that. So, and even then, I think a max defensive Sylveon could probably still take one. Obviously, it's not Protean, so. In the end, I'm just going to decide to click U-turn, and, you know, we'll get to gauge how much damage this does. He doesn't switch, so it's okay, I guess. And we're just going to go into one of, you know, a couple area resists we brought on this team. Seems like Magnezone might be okay. Maybe Empoleon to set up rocks? I think we're going to go with Empoleon in the end, because maybe we'll get up rocks, and it's a little bit more especially defensive than Magnezone. And he ends up to just run the naked bootleg and baton pass out. So it turns out I probably could have gunk shotted there, but there was no way in heck I was going to risk that. So that gives, of course, gives him the switch initiative. But that did quite a bit to that Sylveon. So definitely more than I was expecting to see a U-turn deal. But I don't think it's going to be, you know, Specs, because Specs baton pass. I mean, the only move you really need is Hyper Voice, I guess, but I don't know. At least it looks like it's not going to be physically defensive, perhaps specially defensive. Anyway, this thing's in here, and I have a Shuka Berry, so I'm just going to bludgeon it with Scalds. If it's not specially defensive, it should do over half. He decides to Swords Dance up, which means a baton pass is going to be incoming, so we definitely want to, you know, be firing off Scalds and maybe try to proc a burn on somebody. The one I'm most afraid of probably is going to be the T-Rex, because Tyrantrum is quite powerful. That did under half, which means that it is special defensive, Gligar, and means we are going to click another Scald. So that's what we're going to do after momentary consider. Well, I think I'm considering if he's going to pass out or not right here. So I'm thinking about clicking Flash Cannon, trying to catch the T-Rex on the switch end, but instead I believe I just decided to go Scald, as he decides to double dance and set up Agility as well, so this could get very dangerous. Scald burns on the second try, which is pretty okay, because that's now going to put it in range to where I can kill this with Flash Cannon. It's going to be, you know, dead on entry to burn, so he's going to pass out now, and I'm just going to expect Tyrantrum to come in, so I'm going to go Flash Cannon here. You know, I could very well just continue to go Scald, but Scald just burned, so I'm not going to expect it to burn again. But water's also generally, you know, a nice thing versus his team, because he might not want to bring in, well, I mean, Starmie's got T-Bolt, so could do that. But anyway, it goes into Sawk, and we see Mold Breaker, which I have to remember that, yes, it does get Earthquake. And so that puts us in a precarious position. You know, we got the same damage off that we went out with Scald, so unless it burned, there was no benefit there. But you know, we've got a +2/+2 fighting guy here who can probably beat up my entire team if we didn't have Prankster Will-O-Wisp. So we do have Prankster Will-O-Wisp, but I'm not going to go into it here, even though fighting move is, you know, the obvious click versus Empoleon to outright kill it. I'd live an Earthquake, but I didn't do over half, so I'm going to go into Wheezing. I saw he had Mold Breaker, but he ends up to go Earthquake anyway, which would have hit Sableye and possibly would have done way too much to Sableye. So Wheezing kind of had to go under the bus, but, you know, if it had been close combat, that would have been nice, potentially. Although, of course, he would have just switched over to Earthquake on the next turn. But bottom line, I needed to get Sableye in for free, such that he could, you know, stay at decent enough health and now be able to hopefully bail us out of this with a Will-O-Wisp. Unfortunately, as soon as I drop Sableye in, I figure, you know, he knows I have Prankster Sableye, so he probably has a Lumberry. So, yeah, it's not like it's going to change the play. We're still going to Wisp, and indeed he is Lumberry, and Earthquake is going to not kill Sableye at all, so, yeah, going mostly physically defensive seems to have worked out in our favor there, and now if we can hit a consecutive Will-O-Wisp, we can kind of mitigate this guy, and pretty much negate the baton pass there, so that would be well and good, and I'm pretty sure we would survive an Earthquake with Lefty's recovery and about how much based on how much we took before. If we take about half of that, so thankfully we do land another Wisp, and that means that the baton pass threat is now officially gone. Well, Gligar is pretty much dead. This thing's under half, so I'm just gonna pop a recover here, as it should be pretty safe to do so. He can switch into Sylveon and force Sableye out, but you know, that's whatever. We can go from there. We kind of ruined this thing, and we kind of ruined Gligar as well. So we're down Wheezing, but we kind of ruined two guys early on. So I'm pretty okay with where we are right now, as we're gonna get Sableye back up to usable range of hit points, and we'll have to see if he wants to either go ahead and fodder this guy off and get switch initiative, or just go into something, because I'm just going to click recover, which ends up to be Starmie. And Starmie's weak to Shadow Ball and is a special attacker, so I see this and I'm like, Calm Mind seems like a pretty good idea, and that's what we're going to click and expect to, you know, well, depending on how offensive a Starmie it is, you know, we might, with a Calm Mind, take not too much, or we might take, you know, a considerable amount. But regardless, we're going to give it a shot and go for a Calm Mind as we see what he wants to do. I know Starmie does get Dazzling Gleam, so that's kind of what I'm expecting here. So we're going to Calm Mind. The Sableye is going to use the Calm Mind. He's getting ready to stroke some cats, and that's a reference that maybe one person will get. And Calm Mind up, and here comes the Scald, which is going to mop the floor with Sableye, and that means we see no Life Orb. That is Specs and Analytic, and I think my calc was slightly wrong. I had in the wrong amount of special defense. I don't think it would have changed my play either way. But yeah, it was a guaranteed live with the special defense and the calc. It was a roll with the actual special defense I had in there, so definitely Analytic, taking, you know, advantage of Prankster, and we know it's Specs locked into Scald, so it's with that much damage, it has to be Specs. There's no two ways about it. So we're gonna drop into Greninja, because that's, you know, well, it doesn't want to take a Scald, but if Starmie wants to Scald and, you know, lose a large chunk of its life, then that would be alright. But I feel like it probably doesn't want to, and even if it does, then U-turn's super effective too. So we're just going to U-turn out and try to get some initiative on somebody else, with the knowledge that we have a choiced Starmie to contend with. So I suppose that does mean we might not see a Rapid Spin from Starmie, so there's that. Gligar's last move might be Defog, but anyway, we're just going to U-turn out of here, and this U-turn doesn't KO, but the burn's going to KO, so that means we have a free drop into whoever we want, and then he'll get initiative into whoever he wants. So generally my, you know, most neutral guy that I want to have out there is going to be Empoleon. However, because this guy's going to go down, that's now going to free us up to Volt Switch all over his face with Magnezone. So we're just going to send in Magnezone, and if I could, I'd already go ahead and click Volt Switch right here, but well, I suppose unless he dropped in the T-Rex, that would be bad. So yeah, we are going to Volt Switch on this guy, which I'm pretty sure, like, mid-game, I think, oh, is he Scarfed? And, like, immediately remember, oh, right, no, Lumberry. So, anyway, we're going to Volt Switch. And who will we bring in on the Volt Switch? Well, presumably he's just going to let this guy die. That's sort of my guess. So, well, you know, see what I lock myself into. I'm presuming at Team Preview he assumed I was Scarfed, which is probably pretty correct. Definitely pretty correct, actually. We're going to drop in Wave Man because, again, you know, a full life Empoleon is generally an okay thing to have out against most teams. So, yeah, it can set up rocks or do other stuff. So, Empoleon's good like that. I think we've now brought Empoleon to, I think, every game since week 3. Like, starting week 3, we've brought Empoleon to every game. It's freaking good. So here's a Starmie that we know is choiced. So, this is an interesting conundrum here because it's probably going to click T-Bolt. If it does, then I can go into Magnezone and, you know, resist it, and it'll still hurt because Analytic and Specs on Magnezone, at least in the first hit, of course, but, you know, I can then proceed to Volt Switch, and assuming it's going to be mostly an offensive Starmie, I might KO. Thunderbolt definitely would, but I'd rather Volt Switch. However, if he predicts that and goes Scald, I probably lose Magnezone, and I know that Empoleon will live this T-Bolt, so I decide, let me go ahead and get Grass Knot off on there. It kind of sucks to lose a lot of Empoleon's life, but at least now I know he's locked in T-Bolt. He didn't try to over-predict and go Scald, so, you know, now I can go pretty safely into Magnezone, as either he's going to be forced to go for T-Bolt that's going to do roughly 30-ish%, or just leave, and then, you know, either way, Magnezone's kind of got some initiative to have going on. So, oh well, you know, cutting on the Magnezone there, but again, I felt like it was a bit too big of a risk because Magnezone is a pretty great check to this guy, and also that's now definitely in range for a Greninja, Grass Knot, or U-turn to KO. So, once again, Zone is here, and pretty much every turn Zone's in, I want to click Volt Switch because I can. So, That'll be a recurring theme for later. So this thing comes in, and at that range of HP, like, I know Gunk Shot will kill, but I don't want to click Gunk Shot. I really don't. So I think I end up going, I believe I go back, do I go back? I think I go back into Empoleon. You know, get some super effectives, even though I also don't think that from where it's at, if it's going to be specially defensive, that Flash Cannon will actually KO. So in the end, we do decide to go into Greninja, and the question is, do I risk the Gunk Shot? And the answer is no. I'm going to click U-turn again, so, because screw trying to actually hit with that move. So I have it, the threat is there, I just don't want to click it, so I'm not going to click it. We're going to click U-turn instead, and if it wants to stay in, then, you know, then I can maybe go into Magnezone, and I'd be pretty well confident then, or like, I'd be confident then that Empoleon could do that. So here's a U-turn. We could go back into Magnezone, or we could attempt to drop in Fable, and I feel like, you know what, I think if we're gonna use Fable this game, I think this might be the time. So actually, I'm a liar. We are going to go into Magnezone instead and try to threaten the thing out. Let's see what it wants to do. Also, that U-turn did a lot, so kind of like Sylveon before, makes me think it's going to be a especially defensive type of Milotic going on here. So yeah, too bad we didn't bring Raptor Bird or other guy. So that Volt Switch did not nearly as much as it could have. So yeah, it's definitely especially defensive as all get out, and I think we're just going to drop in. I'd like to drop in Fable, but I want Fable to get in for free, so we're going to end up dropping into Empoleon instead. Mostly, I suppose, expecting a Scald, perhaps a Recover, if he expected Volt Switch. So instead, he's Mirror Coat. So Empoleon, thankfully, didn't have a whole lot of juice left anyway. So at least now we know, and yeah, there's that. So he's now like at 50-ish%. I could go into Zone and threaten him out with T-Bolt, but I don't really want to do that, because T-Rex resists T-Bolt, so, and could potentially do bad things. So instead, we're gonna drop in Fable, and we're gonna pull the trigger now. So we're at 4-3, and I think this is the time to try to set up and win the game. So he's gonna recover up, and we are going to Cosmic Power, and we are at +1. If we can get our +2, then that potentially will just be the game right there, unless he brought Haze. So, was I aware he could bring Haze? Absolutely. Did I think he would bring it because I haven't used like any form of setup outside of maybe Gallade a few times? No, I did not think he would. So, yeah. That means that Fable is officially completely dead weight right now, and I should probably have sped this part up, but I didn't because you guys like long videos. So, also, fun fact, during this whole exchange, I don't think Scald burns a single time, which is rather funny because it wouldn't have mattered because Magic Guard, but it's just funny. So, anyway, what I'm thinking here is, well, Fable's dead weight, Ninja and, like, I don't know how, you know, I had the Milotic at about 50% to where maybe something could have killed it, but now we're not quite sure. You see there goes Citrus popping. So now I don't really have a great way to kill this Milotic. So there is the thought that I'm sure some of you are thinking in the comments of, oh, Volt Switch and go into Greninja because you can't Mirror Coat a Dark type. And that's true. The problem is that Grass Knot with Life Orb, with my amount of special attack, does, I believe, under 50% based on how much Volt Switch was doing anyway. And he can just freely recover up while I am a Life Orb Greninja. The game takes like an extra 2 seconds there real time to load back to the screen, so I don't know what was going on right there. But anyway, I definitely like seriously consider like, alright, I can, you know, I don't mind just staying in here and, you know, clicking Cosmic Powers and Soft Boileds and Charge Beams and all that other stuff until we time out. Like, I'd do that. You know, that would probably upset some of the analysts, so I'm all for that. That sounds pretty good. But, and I probably would have done that in some situations, but whatever. I guess we'll try to figure out a way to win the game. We'll at least give it a shot, you know? So, the thought is that I'd like to try to get Magnezone in on preferably on a Haze, although he could endure a Scald, so I want to try to get Milotic relatively low, but also in a position to where it wants to haze. And I guess kind of the thought is that we might want to, I mean, we could potentially go for that play, going for Volt Switch, and then we could either A, sack off Fable, or B, go into Ninja, and try to avoid the Mirror Coat. And depending on where the Milotic would be at after the Volt Switch, you know, we might be, I guess that would mostly depend on what it would be, after the Volt Switch, if he opted for that over, you know, stuff and things. But again, like, the problem is I don't really want to kill anything with a choice T-Bolt because T-Rex, so I don't know what kind of T-Rex it is, but, you know, if it's choice, then that might be alright. If it's something else, then that might not be alright, so... anyway, we're just trying to pick a good time here. There are a couple of crits, and both by and against, but neither of them actually end up to matter too much. So, again, probably should have sped this up, but whatever. I was also thinking at some point, man, wonder if I can PP stall him out of Haze, and Haze has like 30 PP, so that's not happening. Yeah, there was the crit that got Fable really low, but once again, you'll notice that none of these Scalds were burning, so it was like, I think the... well, I think Scald burned one time on the Gligar, and that I think was the only like relevant, like under 50% thing that actually happened. Charge Beam, I feel like I wasn't particularly paying attention to whether or not I had Charge Beam raises because it didn't super duper matter because of how little it was doing. But at some point, I'm gonna end up pulling the trigger and saying, you know what, I guess we'll try to win the game. I honestly would be perfectly content to you know, just take a 3-4 right here. Certainly if I had the lead and pokes. I'm trying to think if he's gonna see. Starmie's at half. Sylveon is... I knew in the game how much HP it had. Anyway, we're gonna drop in Magnezone here, and it's gonna take a Scald, unfortunately, instead of a Haze, and that's unfortunate. But I think that turn I had a boost from the Charge Beam, so I was hoping he'd want to erase that. So Volt Switch does that much, and unfortunately that's not really, I was hoping maybe to get a higher roll. That's not really, yeah, after lefties, that's not really to where Greninja would be able to KO it. So I think I needed probably a little bit more damage. It was just going to be, it was rough, because like, I needed him to, basically I had to make him to not recover on a certain turns. I don't know, we probably could have finagled around it a little bit differently. But now Fable's gone, so we're officially, you know, not going to do the nonsensical 4-3 timeout anymore. We're going to try to see what we can do. Now, I believe Zone can kill from there with a T-Bolt, but that's the problem with the T-Bolt. So, I could Volt Switch into Ninja, and that would potentially be better. But in the end, I believe I just decided to go T-Bolt here. Probably should not, but I do anyway, because it seems like the best opportunity I'm going to have to kill the Milotic, because if I Volt Switch and he recovers, and, you know, I obviously Volt Switch into Greninja, then that's pretty much going to be it right there. I'm never going to be able to get Milotic back down low enough. So maybe he thinks it's a roll to survive, you know, and maybe it is, and I win that roll. The trouble is, it's going to be also like, what's the T-Rex going to be packing for me, so that's sort of the thought right here. Yeah, and he is indeed going to switch into Sylveon, so that thankfully at least will get to it KO'd by T-Bolt. And then here, well, like I said, I don't really want to take the KO with T-Bolt, but if I go into Ninja and he just either A, baton passes and gets back into Milotic, or B, you know, just hyper voices, then we're kind of stuck here, and it's a bit of a problem. So I believe he told me after the game that he clicked HP ground here, as I am going to end up staying in T-Bolt, and it is going to die. So that's going to be what's going to happen momentarily that I just spoiled. So in theory, going to Ninja would have been an okay play. But that's not the play we decided to make. So now what's going to happen is T-Rex versus T-Bolt. He's obviously not going into the two water guys. Pretty much we need a T-Bolt para and full para, and I have had that happen before. I believe it was when I was playing against a Magnezone, although conveniently I think I had a Blissey out, so it didn't matter as much as it could have. But here's T-Rex. Shiny Tyrantrum looks awesome, by the way. It's blue. I'm a big fan of that. So we can't switch to Flash Cannon, obviously. So I forget if I've actually revealed if I'm Scarfed, like confirmed officially. Like, I obviously am, but from the way I've played it. But I forget if I've actually, like, outsped something I shouldn't have. Yeah, I outsped Sawk. So, he definitely 100% knows I'm choice. And, yeah, like I said, I could switch into the guy, but that wouldn't really matter. I don't think I can actually kill this thing from full anyway, because I didn't bring Ice Beam. Scald or Surfed It would do quite a bit. It would kill it from there, but he's going to Dragon Dance, and that's going to officially close out the game, so... Oh well, we're just going to be 2 quick Earthquakes or whatever. We'll see if he actually wants to go for the cheeky Head Smash on Greninja, which I believe he could. Technically, I guess he could go for right here. It still kills zone from 35, but he's just going to go for the safe EQ. And I think I was also calcing Greninja to, like, I guess, like a Lumberry Tyrantrum, in theory, could have lived from that range. I think EQ with Jolly max attack, but like just Lumberry or something would do like max of 100-ish. So that was a potential thing, but DD pretty much had the game on lockdown. So that'll be a 3-0 to him. Good job, man, picking up another win. Yep, not too much else to say from my end. I brought setup guys for the first time outside Gallade all season. He brought the move that counters setup guys. So, yeah. If I had just brought a regular Clefable, we might have been okay, because then I could have actually, done something, maybe Toxic or, otherwise harassed the Milotic. Starmie didn't have Natural Cure, I could have paralyzed it. Would have been great. But anyway, and I know what you guys are saying, we could have won pretty easily if we had just brought Aggron. That's probably true, but... Tom's been having a rough year, and I don't want to trigger his PTSD more than I need to. I'm only a sadistic tsundere to certain coaches in the league, and Tom is not one of them. So that's kind of how that goes. But yeah, that's totally spoilers for other games. We apologize again for the late upload, but delays were had in the getting done of the game, and then holiday junk as well. So. Anyway, yeah, so we will be, 5-3. Yeah, 5-3 sounds good. We're actually back in negative differential. Goramit, this freaking team can't get a big differential win. I mean, it's obviously not nearly as defensive and nice and bulky as some of the ones we've had in the past, but I don't know, I still like it alright. It's been doing okay. Like, this is actually one of our better records through this many games that we've had, so, can't really complain too much, but, anyway, we're still, in a decent spot to, make a playoff run, so we're certainly not out of the playoffs by any means, so. We actually only have four games to go, but before we get into those, we'll get into Pokemon of the Game. Obviously, it's always a bit awkward when, Pokemon of the Game when we lose the game, but we're going to give it to Magnezone this week, as, it was kind of awkward because he couldn't kill anything and stay in because of T-Rex. But, free to just Volt Switch, and, with having 2 water types, Volt Switch was able to, put a number on stuff, after we took down Gligar, who thankfully went down reasonably earlier, so kind of had some Volt Turn stuff going on this week, but, unfortunately, Fable getting thwarted and being made into a relatively useless pink blob. After the game, in the locker room, Fable was, bawling eyes out, saying that let the team down, and we kind of had to go and be the good head coach, pat Fable on the back, hug it out, let him know that there's next week, we got next week. Who do we play next week? Oh come on! Go ahead and write the freaking 06 loss down, guys. So week after next, we play Chimpact. We might win that game. Yeah, this freaking dude. What even is that record? Go ram it. Alright, see you guys next week for another Bloodbath. We'll see if we can, I'll see if I can grab some, 7 Tools of the Bandit for next week. But, I don't know. Later days.